Hello, my name is Andrew Thake, and I am a Divisional Director for Resourcing Tomorrow. The Xplor program was established in 2023 to support promising mineral explorers deploying innovative practices and techniques in exploring for critical minerals needed to support the energy transition. This webinar is designed to help people who are interested in the Xplor program learn more in a direct and accessible way. While marketing materials provide an overview of the program, today's webinar gives applicants the chance to hear firsthand from their alumni. Their perspective helps them understand what experience is really like, what challenges and opportunities to expect, and how the program can shape their business. This session will cover what makes a compelling application, how BHP provides technical and commercial support, and the program structure and timelines. There will be a question and answer session, so I would invite you to submit any questions in the Q&A function. We will cover as many as possible during the webinar. Any we can't cover off, you can also email your questions to explore@bhp.com. To help us discuss these issues for today's webinar, we welcome Niall McCormack, who's a business coach at BHP Xplor, Fabian Baker, who's a former managing director for Kingrose Mining, one of the successful companies that was part of the 2024 cohort, and Oliver Jones, CEO of DesertEx, one of the successful companies that is part of the 2025 cohort. Starting off, we have a presentation from Niall. Niall, can you tell us a little bit about why BHP runs the Xplor program and how participants benefit?
Andrew, thank you very much for the introduction and for the time today. Let me start by just sharing a short video and then we'll go into the presentation. Let's get technology working, hopefully.
We are looking for teams that are ready to think big, that are bringing exciting projects to the table and are ready to accelerate their exploration opportunities through partnership.
They get a chance to step off the hamster wheel of funding. They have access to all of our contacts, full BHP exploration team, a panel of experts that can really talk about mineral systems straight on through to running a business.
The growth of our company has been meteoric.
We have become the largest landholder in Newfoundland and Labrador.
We've built the largest geological database for Norway that probably exists globally.
Now we've got nearly 700 square kilometers of license under application.
And we're in a growth phase from 5 people to approaching 60 people.
Before Xplor, we were just a concept. And now we're a company with an incredible story and an incredible land package.
For Xplor, we were a good team. And because of Xplor, we're better.
So, BHP Xplor, it started nearly 4 years ago as just an idea on paper, and now we've grown into a successful program. Over the last 4 years, we've had over 1,000 applications. We've had 21 companies selected and complete the Xplor program. And I've been involved since the start. My name is Niall McCormack, and I'm the business coach for Xplor. It really is a privilege to be here today. And to be representing BHP Xplor to you. And hopefully over the next 15 minutes or so, I'll give you an insight into some of the critical elements, because I know that some of you might be hearing about it for the first time. Some of you may have spoken to some of our alumni and understand part of it. And some might just be inquisitive and thinking about, is this the thing for me? Is this worthwhile? So hopefully I'll answer some of those questions and I'll share a few stories. And maybe spark your interest and certainly leave you curious to find out more and hopefully apply and potentially be part of the program going forward. And with that, I'd like to thank both Ollie and Fabian for making the time to come in and explain their part and how they had and experienced the program. You'll get to ask them some questions later on. But before we go there, it's important to start back with, BHP. Look, many of you will know BHP. It's the world's largest integrated mining company, we find, develop, and produce the critical minerals that are required to drive the energy transition. Portfolio includes copper to electrify the world, nickel, critical in electric vehicles, potash to sustain food across the planet, and iron ore and met coal to build the planet. In recent years, BHP has had a mandate for growth and a massively renewed mandate for growth. And it's through innovative business models like BHP Xplor that we demonstrate this commitment, that we invest in opportunities that can help to change the planet. We invest in exploration, and we use BHP Xplor to help fast-track discovery. So that's kind of where BHP Xplor began in terms of the requirement and the mandate to go out and grow. And it's built on the honest understanding that many of the best exploration concepts sit outside BHP. And the reality today is that the junior capital market often doesn't incentivize the right kind of work that helps make discoveries on BHP scale. So about 4 years ago, we sat down and decided that we'd look beyond the mining industry for inspiration around how do you access those great ideas. And we turned to Silicon Valley, and specifically to the accelerator model, which over the last decade has proven as a powerhouse for technology companies to access new ideas. So for anyone less familiar with accelerators, the tech stars or the Y Combinators of the world, what they do is they scout out promising early stage companies and early stage opportunities. They surround them with the resources and the mentorship and the networks that allows them to accelerate their opportunities. The goal is to help these companies grow and scale significantly faster than they could do so on their own. For Xplor, we lifted that business model and we re-engineered it for the unique circumstances that you find within mineral exploration. What's happened is we've created a new form of partnership. Fast forward to today, we're on to our 4th application round for Xplor. We've had over 1,000 applications across years 1 to 3. We've shown that there's a demand, and most importantly, we believe we can have a real impact in accelerating the discoveries of critical minerals. Over the next few minutes, I'd like to show you what the Xplor program actually looks like. One, who's it for? Who are we talking to? 2, why do we believe it's a compelling program for explorers? And 3, how does it work in practice? What happens day to day? So let's start with what we're looking for. So simply put, we're really looking for innovative ideas. And if you have them, we want to hear from you. We look for a broad spectrum of candidates, from an individual, a researcher, or an academic backgrounds, private companies, no matter the size or the stage that they're at, and publicly listed companies who might be applying to Xplor, looking to get partnership on one of their opportunities. Our program is designed to be meaningful no matter what your starting point is. So from where you are today, it's about accelerating you along that journey. If I could give 2 quick examples from my side and 2 of the companies that I've had the pleasure of working with. The first one was an academic with an idea, no tenement holding, and came to BHP and said, to BHP Xplor and said, look, I have this idea. How about the Xplor program as a way of accelerating that? Day 1 of the program, the company doubled. So it went from 1 employee to 2 employees. By the end of the program, it was at the position where BHP made an investment and is now partnering with that company that didn't exist before the Xplor program. That's at one end of the scale. The other end of the scale is Kingsrose, which was a company that had significant amount of cash in the bank, but was actually looking at how do we partner to accelerate opportunities in more challenging areas, and how do they grow a long-term partnership with a major company like BHP, particularly for an innovative early stage idea. Both of these companies were successful in terms of applying, being part of the program, and then partnerships long-term afterwards with BHP. To sum up, it doesn't really matter where you sit in the ecosystem. It doesn't matter what stage you're at. What we're really looking for are innovative ideas and people that want to be involved and engaged, that we can work with and build long-term, meaningful relationships and partnerships with. So the next part is why apply? Why would you want to be part of this? You know, it's pretty simple that, and one of the things that attracts a lot of people is the $500,000 grant. It's certainly one of the things that makes people's eyes open up when you talk about it. And every company that is involved in Xplor gets a $500,000 grant of non-dilutive funding for their exploration opportunities to help them mature those opportunities over the program. Well, while the money is a great draw card and incredibly useful for being able to take a step back from the treadmill that can be the markets in terms of how they fund juniors, the program goes much, much further. First, program and the curriculum in the program is intentionally designed to have a meaningful impact on every company and every project, no matter where it's starting within the ecosystem. Each year, we design the curriculum specifically to meet the needs of that cohort. So Fabian will recognize some of what we're doing this year, but not all of it. And if when himself and Ollie sit down as part of the alumni and they discuss some of the things they experienced, they'll be different because this year's cohort had slightly different requirements to Fabian's cohort. I think Mike Jones said it best, actually. Mike was the MD, or Mike is the MD of Impact Minerals and was one of the first cohort members. And he described it as BHP is like being on a mini MBA in mineral exploration. And we were very glad to hear him say that. It's not necessarily what we set out to achieve. What we set out to achieve was make companies more investable, to help them accelerate their technical, operational, and business elements so that they could become easier partners for any company and easier to invest in. One of the big benefits as well is actually the partnerships that you form outside BHP. The relationships that you form with the other cohort members and the alumni are meeting in Brisbane later in the month, and the vendors, BHP internal experts and external experts and subject matter expertise that we bring to bear. So after the last 3 years, we now have a global alumni. Year one, 6 companies, global footprint. Second year, we had 13. And after this cohort, the most recent cohort, we're now up to 21. They cover the spectrum from early stage to later stage in the exploration scheme. They cover various commodities and their footprint is global. What they all bring, every one of them, is enthusiasm, energy, high skill sets, and a drive to accelerate for discovery. So what does it look like in practice? How does the program work? And what should you expect if you were to come along? The program runs for about 8 months. It starts in January, early February with boot camp. Boot camp is where we get everyone together for the first time and we get everyone on the same page in terms of technical, operational, and business foundations for the program. In a way, we bring together the common language. At boot camp, after boot camp, we move to the virtual part of the program. And the virtual part of the program has 2 elements. It's got master classes, again, across those technical, business, and operational elements. And it's got coaching, business coaching, technical coaching, and leadership coaching. my role for the last 3 years has been part of business coaching. A key milestone comes in March, where we go to Toolkit. And Toolkit Camp is where we get down into more detail around the toolkit that's used by juniors and by exploration companies to advance their programs, both their technical programs, operational and business. We work with external vendors to introduce vendors and cohort members together, specifically around the opportunities and the challenges that they're having. After Toolkit Camp, the virtual program continues, and it runs through till we get to Scale Camp. Scale Camp, our first year of Scale Camp was this year, held in Palo Alto, where we're right in the heart of Silicon Valley. That's really about how do we use innovation and how do we grow and scale companies. So how do you move forward from where you are today to be successful in the future and be able to do it with pace so that you can accelerate discovery? And then at the end of the program, this year it's September in Brisbane, we have Showcase, where we do the public-facing element of it, where the cohort members get to stand up and talk about their opportunities, their businesses. This year, we'll also have an alumni event associated with that, so that we actually integrate the cohorts from multiple years. They get to know each other. They've got very similar challenges, very similar opportunities in terms of understanding their businesses. And one of the powers of Xplor is actually people getting to know other MDs, getting to know other technical people around the world who are facing very similar challenges. So throughout the program, we ask each company to have 2 active participants. The CEO or the MD is the business lead, and then the technical lead for the opportunity. The business coaching and the leadership coaching go alongside with the CEO and the MD, and the technical coaching is for everyone. One of the things I didn't say within this is the virtual sessions have a tendency to be more open to your companies. So if we have a technical virtual session, you actually get to bring the other people in your company. If you happen to be the company of 2, that's not a big thing. But for people like at King's Roads, and they've had the opportunity to bring other people in and actually get to see what's going on the technical coaching side. So applications opened a couple of weeks ago, or last week actually. So what I would like to do now is bring you through a little bit around how does the process work. So what are we looking for? First and foremost, we're looking for innovative exploration ideas at any stage in their development. You don't need to have tenements. You don't need to be ready to drill. You don't need to drill within the program. None of what we're looking for are innovative exploration ideas at any stage within the life cycle. And this is really one of those times where no idea is a bad idea. This is an opportunity to put innovative ideas on the table and have them looked at and discussed by peers from BHP. We're looking for ideas that will move the dial for BHP. So we're looking for scale. We're looking for things that can matter to a company of BHP scale. So think big. The last thing that we do is we look for systems thinking. And what do I mean by that? Well, there's probably a couple of ways of thinking about that. Mineral systems is how we in BHP, the lens we use in BHP to look at technical. And we use systems, whether they're the strategy system, whether they're operational systems, to actually allow us to run strong businesses, both technical, operational, and strategic. So we're looking with people who just think like that. We're not expecting people to think the same as us. We're looking for the style of thinking rather than the answer. And then we work together on what works for your company. So if that sounds like your team, if that sounds attractive, apply. So as I mentioned, applications are underway. What happens if you put in an application? So the application window is open until October 15th, Wednesday. When the application is submitted, it is reviewed, and it's reviewed normally within a couple of days. And we select a subset, a long list, to have a virtual technical discussion, which is online, get a little deeper into your opportunity, understand more about what's been written in the application. And then a shortlist comes from that, where we have face-to-face interviews in Toronto in mid-November. And the idea of the face-to-face interview is for each side to actually understand each other and get a deeper understanding, not just of the opportunity, but of where the company is, what your aspiration is, where are you playing, how are you going to win in this space. After the in-person interview, the final selection and the offer is made, with the program kicking off in January. If you'd like to find out more about the application process and all of the information that we're talking about, go explore at bhp.com. So, as I said, applications opened 8th of September. So it's a 5-week window, about what we normally do. The applications will close sharp 15th of October, 5 p.m. AWST. For anyone else around the world, that means a little earlier than your normal time zone. That's an Australian time zone. We're running webinars and we're running sessions like this over the next few weeks. Anyone who's down at the SEG in Brisbane, we're going to have a stand down at the SEG. Please come and see us. We'd love to talk about it. We're massively enthusiastic about it. For us, it's been a passion project over the last 4 years. It's not something that business as usual for anyone who's been involved in Xplor. And I think Ollie and Fabian can probably testify to that. And if you want to find out more, if you want to apply, go to bhp.com/explore. Apply early. And if you want to put in more than one application for different opportunities, please do that as well. If you've got 2 things, that's not a problem. So look, that's a little window into Xplor, an idea of what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve, what we're looking for, and hopefully what it feels like to be part of it. But genuinely talking to the alumni, talking to the people that have been part of the program, that's the best way of finding out what it's about. So why are we doing it again? Firstly, BHP has a growth mandate. We recognize that to meet our growth objectives, we need to bring new opportunities into the portfolio. And we need to work with the best teams around the world to do that, because not all the best ideas sit inside BHP. BHP Xplor is a vehicle to make that happen. Every year, once a year, we open the doors so that we can see what the world's doing and see the best and innovative ideas from across the world. Again, from individuals, from private companies, from public companies. We don't mind. There's no constraint in that space. It allows us to see cutting edge innovation. It allows us to get to meet and understand and work with teams. And most importantly, to build long-term partnerships across the industry. At the end of the day, it sets up an opportunity for us to work with people to explore and accelerate exploration around the world. So I'd like to thank Andrew and his team and the team at Resourcing Tomorrow for hosting us and setting this up for us. And I'd like to now we'll have the opportunity, and I'll hand it back to Andrew. Again, I'll remind you, if you're down at SEG, come to the booth, have a chat, and importantly, applications close October 15th, but don't hesitate to be putting them in sooner than that, please. Andrew.
Thank you very much for a great presentation, Niall. We're now obviously going to welcome in Fabian Baker and Oliver Jones into the discussion. Let me kick off a question for Oliver Jones, CEO of DesertEx, who, as I mentioned, is part of the 2025 cohort. What was the selection process like?
Oh, hi, Andrew. Yeah, that's a good question. Lying if I didn't say that it was a bit daunting at the start. But like very quickly, we kind of discovered that the interview process was actually really friendly. Like no one's trying to trip you up with difficult questions put you on the spot. I think the team are just really genuinely interested in finding out about your opportunity. Like we turned up with literally nothing as well, right? No company, no brand, definitely no money. So don't feel like you have to have everything kind of locked in before you make an application. But like kind of like what Niall said, you know, the only thing you really need is a good idea here. But I'd say during the selection process, I'd say try not to get bogged down into the technical side of things too much. Although it's obviously really important, there are other things like, for example, like understanding your jurisdiction. You know, what are the risks in your jurisdiction? Could you get tenure if your idea comes off? Is the government about to like rewrite the mining law? You know, are there local groups or environmental considerations that might make working there difficult? Like these are all important questions that you'll be asked, and turning up prepared for these will put you in a really good position. But yeah, generally, I just like really and a really positive experience, despite being absolutely start.
And you mentioned the technical there. How did the BHP Xplor program support you technically and operationally?
Oh God, we had an enormous amount of support, just technically in terms of business management and also on the operational side. Technical support for us, it meant help with building a mineral systems framework to test our idea. It meant help with the really niche porphyry geochemistry that we needed to do and help with kind of sampling best practice. As well as it kind of, I think a really important thing for us as well was this introduction to this massive network of third-party vendors and experts who actually ended up being really, really important for the success of our project. Operationally, I mean, having $500,000 in the bank account allowed us to set a company up. It allowed us to buy field vehicles and gear so we could actually get out and do things. But that kind of support, and specifically actually some of the support from Niall as well on the business side, you know, really down into the nuts and bolts of our business. And just as like one example, Niall helped me renegotiate the shareholding in my company to was kind of driving the projects and taking on the burden of the work. And he helped me do that in a way where everyone felt included in the decision-making process and felt it was a fair outcome. And that's a difficult conversation that I probably would have avoided before this program, right? But having that support allowed me to do something that, you know, would have been really difficult for me beforehand. And I don't think it's not just about the support that we directly got from BHP. I think it's also kind of how we leveraged that BHP connection. Like that had a massive impact on us strategically as a company. It, you know, it opened doors within various ministries, and we got a lot more help and support from those ministries with setting up the business, making license applications. Just as like an example, like before Xplor, I had a meeting with the ministry, and they literally didn't even show up. I was just stood outside hot, which is quite frustrating. After the kind of connection with Xplor kind of got around and we started developing that connection, you know, I got a much more VIP treatment, and you know, you got kind of taken a lot more seriously, which for us was hugely important when you're kind of establishing yourself in a new jurisdiction.
You mentioned the $500,000 funding, which leads into a question for you, Niall. What can the selected cohort spend their funding on?
So there's no set you will spend your funding on this. It's a grant. The intent is that the funding is spent on accelerating the opportunities. And however, that can mean, as Ollie referred to, that can mean setting up the company, in his case. It can mean both from a business perspective and an operational perspective, as well as getting analysis done. What we do at the start is we work at the start of the program, and as part of the application, people are asked to submit a proposed work program. And then at the start of the program, we sit down and we go, okay, you know, that makes sense. Here's some suggestions around what you may want to consider that you can do in 6 to 8 months that will have a significant impact. So, for example, we funded field work. I think Ollie's a good example is we funded the field work. It's funded the setup of the company. It's funded actually applications, and it's funded vehicles. You kind of got a bit of everything in there, including some geochemistry. So it's very broad. The intent of it, if you just go back to more of the intent, it's what's required to accelerate or build and accelerate the company over the next period of time and accelerate the opportunity, so that it's better understood at the end and that the company is better set up to run forward with it. So they're the sort of two intents behind it. But it's a very broad use case.
Bringing in Fabian Baker, who, as I mentioned before, is a former managing director at Kinrose Mining. How did the BHP Xplor program make you think differently about your business as a whole?
Thanks, Andrew. I think that's a really sort of key point of the program in a number of ways. I'd say, firstly, it really encouraged us to look holistically at our business. The technical focus remained key, but there was also a really good understanding of, well, how do you enable good exploration? Because a lot of the groups coming into the program are pretty good at taking the idea, the exploration concept forward from a technical point of view, but how do you surround that with the right sort of infrastructure? There's no use if you can't get access to the ground, keep the team safe, engage with the investors, government partners that you need to move it forward and make it a reality. Secondly, it really encouraged us to think strategically, develop our capabilities and plan ahead. I think a lot of smaller businesses will often find themselves wrapped up day to day, putting out fires, dealing with what's immediate and what's in front of them just today. And what the program really allows you to do is take a step back and think longer term about your goals of your business. And then you can actually assess, well, is what I'm doing today supporting that longer term goal? And then I think finally, something I found really interesting, because my background has been working in smaller exploration businesses. It's just brilliant to get an insight into what a major mining company like BHP looks for and how they see the world. So ultimately, if we're exploring for projects that we would hope would be acquired perhaps by a major mining company, well, it's really helpful to know what they're looking for, yes, in the project, but also in the project as a whole, a business unit that could be attractive to bring into their business. So yeah, really multifaceted. And
as a follow-up to that, Fabian, what would you recommend to others, to juniors listening into this webinar who are thinking about applying? What would your advice to them be?
Well, following on from the rest of the panelists here, first of all, think big, and why your idea is a good one. I think it's important again to remember who your target audience is here. BHP, one of, if not the largest mining companies in the world. So you're looking for multi-generational opportunities, whether that's a project or a camp. So think big is really important, and have an understanding of why you're doing what you're doing. Secondly, I would also say be open-minded. I think this is new in the industry, so it's not something that people will be very familiar with from our sector. And I have witnessed quite a lot of skepticism around the program. Some of it healthy, and some of it, people saying, well, how can a major mining company teach us how to explore? Well, what I would say is put skepticism to one side. I think I can categorically say that every member of previous cohorts have been really, really impressed and surprised by how much they got out of the program. So I would say lean into it. It's a fantastic opportunity that is really unlike anything else in the business. Yes, have an open mind and go into it with enthusiasm.
And that leads into a question for you, Niall, and I'm going to merge it with also a question that we've received from the audience as well. What is BHP Xplor looking for and consider as good opportunities? And then as a follow-up to that, if I'm a miner and I applied last year and I wasn't successful, can I apply again this year?
Let me answer the second one first. So absolutely. In fact, we have on this year's cohort, we have somebody who applied in year one and they joined the cohort this year. Most of the time that people don't get on the cohorts because the opportunity is not quite the fit that we're looking for at the time. That's really, you know, the primary reason that it doesn't make it on the program. And there was a great case. So one of the cohort members this year has applied at least once. And we've had a couple of people that come really close a couple of times as well, where they've been to the face-to-face interview. So applying multiple times is not a problem whatsoever. And actually having even multiple applications in the same year for different opportunities, that's a really good thing. So if you've got an opportunity in Canada and an opportunity in Africa, don't bundle them, split them apart so that they can be considered, because that allows us to understand them and you to explain them better. So that would be the first part. The second, I think it's back to what Fabian said, which is primarily we're looking for big thinking. So opportunities that can move the dial. They're innovative, and they there's thinking behind them that says, look, this team's really thinking about scale. They're thinking about being able to do big things in an area, and the opportunity is intriguing. We consider and there are, I can see some of the questions coming up. So we do consider the primary thing is looking at exploration, but we read every application. In fact, I've now read 1,000 applications. So I've read every one because I was one of the people who would read every application, and we'd have more than one person, by the way, because reading every application. And if it's not quite a fit for us, but it might be a quick fit, it's not quite a fit for Xplor, but it might be a fit for somewhere else in the organization for technology or innovation or another part of BHP, we share it with them and we ask them their opinion. So it becomes a bit of an opportunity to put your idea forward. And then we've had different things on the program as well. So we do have one group that was more an AI focused group in terms of how do they use the technology to advance exploration rather than necessarily purely an exploration opportunity. You don't need to have tenement holdings. You don't need to have advanced the project. Ollie is a great example of this. It was Ollie and I'm going to say 3 mates. Hopefully they're still mates, Ollie. But it was Ollie and 3 mates, and they had an idea and they went, we'd like to do this. And they've gone from that idea to a company to doing field work to making applications and now holding tenements and having a fully fledged business rather than a concept. So there's no real sort of boundaries within that.
Okay, thank you very much for that. A question that for Oliver, what kind of time commitment can be expected?
All right. I mean, it's kind of a horrid cliche, right? But you do get what you put into these things, and you're never going to have this much kind of time, energy, and expertise focused personal development. It was almost emotionally overwhelming for all these people trying to make you better at what you do. And I reckon it would have taken me a decade to probably get the same level of experience just through osmosis, through working. In terms of your actual commitments, I mean, there's the 3 or 4 events that require travel throughout the year. There's monthly reporting, and then there's the calls you have with your kind of support team of technical and business experts. But saying that, and excuse my French, there's zero bullshit, right? The reports are really brief. The support team calls are super relevant and very much on point. The camps are even more relevant. There's not a wasted minute of your time in those camps. And I think the program has been built to really support your work rather than inhibit it. Like on a personal level, like it's been a fairly full-time job for me, right? But that's because the distinction between what's Xplor work and what's DesertEx work is really blurry. Like the Xplor work has been the complete focus of the business, right? So it's been 5 days a week for me. But for other companies, the program is just part of their work commitments, right? And it might relate to a specific field program. So it's much less sort of time intensive consuming. It kind of depends a little bit on your opportunity, but you might be looking at spending like 1 or 2 days a week, for example, on average, kind of doing something that's Xplor related.
Thank you for that answer. With a question in for Niall, what if it's a country BHP is not operating in? Are you still interested?
Absolutely. And in fact, maybe I should let Fabian answer that.
Yeah, sure. Well, with King's Rose, we were exploring in Norway and Finland, and that Fennoscandian Shield is a part of the world where BHP doesn't have any operational presence. And I think, if anything, this is where applicants to explore can bring something new, a new opportunity to BHP, where they're already established. They will have already teams and more of an understanding of the local opportunities. So I think if not, it's even more so the case to bring new opportunities in new parts of the world to BHP.
Next question from the floor, which I think is also for you, Fabian, as well. What is your relationship like with BHP now? And I think the question behind the question is, like, you're now part of the previous year's cohort. Do you have any sort of, like, what's your ongoing relationship with BHP like?
Well, I'm here 3 years almost later from starting. Excellent. It's been amazing how approachable the BHP team has been, and how the support continues beyond Xplor. And so in the case of King's Rose, we were fortunate to go into exploration alliances where BHP backed longer term exploration of our opportunities. So that's now been ongoing into its second year, where King's Rose is doing the largest early stage generative exploration program, not only in Scandinavia, but probably all of Europe. And so great ongoing support, and actually, beyond even the immediate opportunity that they've been supporting, they're there for me to bounce new ideas off and develop new concepts. So it is absolutely a fantastic opportunity to add the BHP network, to your arsenal, and advance, really exciting ideas that you may have.
Question for Oliver. As a CEO, what were the main learnings to help scale your company?
Cheers. That is a tough question. I think it comes back to like how you would pitch yourself to kind of how would you kind of align yourself with the demands of a major company, right? I think we'd always considered ourselves, we pitch ourselves in the market for finance, like way lower down that ecosystem. But I think it's allowed us to think way bigger in terms of the scale of what we could achieve, and also the sort of people that we can target with that opportunity for financing.
Thank you for that. And follow-up question, I guess, for Fabian. What did you learn from working alongside other cohort companies?
Oh, it's a really great addition to the whole program. I think that you don't know it all. It was great to be surrounded by like-minded, enthusiastic people, but with differences, with different experiences, who've lived and worked in different places on different types of mineral deposit or technologies. And so you really quickly realize you're not just looking to BHP to absorb what you can from the program. You're looking around you at a really high caliber cohort that can teach you a lot. And I think it's really relevant, especially in smaller businesses, because we don't have that big team around us. And so we tend to know what we know and work with that. So if you then realize that you've got access to, people with great experience. I mean, on our cohort, we had a guy who was, very senior in BHP's exploration many moons ago, but had worked all over the world on all sorts of different mineral deposits, and brought some, fantastic capabilities and knowledge. So it's a really important part of it, and as I say, particularly for small businesses, because leaning on a good quality network can really help move your concepts forwards with the right approaches and with the right capabilities.
Thank you for that. Question for Niall. If I'm an applicant and I'm successful, can part of 500,000 be used for salaries?
I think the simple answer is yes, and but I'm going to say yes, but I think that the yes, but is if it's around bringing people on to advance the opportunity, then absolutely, that's not a problem. Like employee 001 was initially paid for by Xplor when we talked about that company that started with an academic, and was brought in to run the exploration program. So it was completely aligned with the sort of advancement of the opportunity and the building of the company. So on the condition it sort of fits those two criteria, there's no real constraint.
Thank you very much for that. Are there any strings attached to the application process?
So there's no strings attached to the application process. While if you're offered a place on the program, if you accept a place on the program, there's a participation agreement. Part of the participation agreement gives BHP exclusivity for the period of time of the program. So it's the length of so it doesn't extend beyond that. It's the period of the time of the program. So when you join the program, the only constraint on you, and you can ask Ollie or Fabian about this, the only constraint is the period of the program. There's an exclusivity. And then there are other things, depending on what happens at the back end, and there can be other things, but that's really the only. And Ollie or Fabian, any comment on that? You guys both signed the participation agreement. Hopefully you read it.
Yeah, I think it was extraordinarily reasonable, right? If someone's going to give you $500,000 of money for free, you'd expect a lot more strings to be attached to it than were. I think the exclusivity was a perfectly fair thing to have attached to it, and otherwise, there were absolutely no concerns from our side.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the only thing to add is that there also isn't any fixed requirement for you to go into a longer term transaction with BHP. There's certainly things in there to support that, and if that was to be the case, but there is no need to. If you choose to, at the end you can say thank you very much and go your own way.
And perhaps not a string, but an expectation is that people show up and participate. I mean, that's actually, it's not one of those. It's not a string, but we want people on the program who will hopefully help. I've learned a ton from Ollie, and I've learned a ton from Fabian. We learn an awful lot from the cohort. Showing up and being part of it and committing to it is incredibly important for the energy that we want to put into it, but also for the other cohort members. So that's not a string, but it is an expectation.
I'm going to take a couple more questions from the floor. I am conscious, for those listening, we've slightly overrun, but we've had so many great questions sent in. So as the moderator, we can just extend it for another 5 minutes. Another question that's very commonly asked: do applicants need to be physically based or located in Australia for the program? No, absolutely not.
This is a global program. We have had people based in, living in, and from every continent. So, and there's no constraint whatsoever on your geographic location. There's no constraint outside sanctioned countries on locations that we would consider to be part of the program. Ollie's in Saudi. Fabian was based in Jersey. They're all over the place. We haven't had a cohort member from Ireland yet, which is where I'm based. So I'm hoping that one comes in soon.
Yeah. I think it may have been covered in your second or third slide. Which commodities do you cover? And I think one of the questions that was put in the Q&A was, would you go and consider sand?
So our primary focus are the metals of the energy transition, and that's a primary focus. I think for everything else, we consider it, and we do consider it. The bars are higher. As I said, we read every application, and we certainly have had different commodities that come on to the virtual technical discussion. And over the 3 years, we've had different commodities in the program. So we absolutely consider a broad spectrum of potential commodities, and to be frank, technologies as well. We look at the technologies. There's the different sort of assessment that's done on them, and if they don't work for us, we may pass them over to our innovation team or our technology team for consideration, which is actually a really big benefit about going through Xplor is that it's an access point as well from a BHP perspective. It's a way in. On the sand specific, BHP doesn't produce sand, and we wouldn't necessarily consider it one of the metals of the future. So it would be a pretty high bar for that to get on the program.
Another question from the floor. How long does the application process take?
Applications close October 15th. Offers are made either the very end of November or early December. There's applications, there's a screening piece that's done inside. It's a virtual technical discussion, which is 45 minutes commitment of time in the October timeframe. And then there's a face-to-face interview in Toronto in mid-November. So there's a bit of a commitment if you get to the interview stage, but you're brought over to Toronto. That BHP, it's your time rather than your money that you're committing to.
And I'm going to ask one closing question to Oliver and to Fabian. If you were to summarize as to what was the sort of like the main takeaway and the main reason you'd give to the junior exploration companies who are on this call as to why to do the BHP Xplor program, what would it be? Maybe I'll go to yourself first, Ollie.
You've got absolutely nothing to lose by making the application. You've got so much to gain. Like the program for us we've gone from nothing to a company with some like amazing targets that we've got under application. We're really excited about where we've got to, and that's happened in like 9 months as well. So like there is no reason why you shouldn't put a small amount of effort in to make the application and just see where it goes. Like you might be surprised you might find yourself in Toronto in a few months' time.
And yourself, Fabian?
I think in the fairly challenging sort of capital markets world of small and junior companies, this really revived our enthusiasm for exploration, to get out there, come up with new ideas, and chase after them. And I think that's a real credit to the program for reigniting that generative exploration spirit.
Thank you for that. And Niall, would you have anything to add as final thoughts?
I think Ollie and Fabian really speak strongly and most strongly about it. What I would encourage people to do is go visit bhpxplor.com, read through the material, put in an application, and tell us as much about yourselves and your opportunities as you can. That the more information that you can give us, the easier it is for us to see if it's a fit. We find applications with more information have a higher likelihood of getting through the process. Applications that are light on information, it gets it harder. So if you can give us maps, if you can give us tell us what you're trying to achieve, that within the comfort of what you're comfortable about sharing, then what have you got to lose by putting that application in? And I hope you feel that you have an enormous amount to gain if you're successful in coming on the program. And look, I'd like to just thank everyone for taking the time for logging on as well, and particularly for Ollie, Fabian, and Andrew, you and your team for organising this.
And many, many thanks for that, Niall. And just a few closing comments from myself. For any questions we weren't able to answer today, my apologies, but you can go and email them at explore@bhp.com. We do have another follow-up webinar taking place on the 7th of October. So I would also encourage for those who are interested to please join that webinar as well. And also really want to thank sort of like BHP Xplor for having such a groundbreaking, innovative program that is really changing the games and changing the rules as to how we do mining exploration. Many thanks for your time today, Ollie, Fabian and Niall. And once again, a reminder that the BHP Xplor 2006 entrance closes on the 15th of October. Thank you very much today for everyone's time.